What's up, you guys? Welcome to episode 378 of the Established Run NBA podcast. I'm Mike Gallagher here with Drew Dinkmeyer to talk a little Wolves Mavs. We're going to preview Game 5, talk about what we learned in Game 4, do probably a little bit of a Boston, Indiana recap. Not too much to say. Obviously, injuries again in the East, big theme there. But Dink, it's the day of Game 5 in Minnesota. How are you feeling today?
Feeling great. We still have basketball, Mike. I was a little bit worried we were going to have no basketball for 10 days. So I'm excited that we still have basketball. Finally saw the Wolves close out a game that they had a lead. They are now 4 for 4 in games that they have led with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They are 1-3 in the series. Not ideal, but it was nice to see them kind of close one out, play effectively, even with the hints of Wolves that you get, the hints of like they're gonna blow this, the hints of silly fouls, all the same stuff from Minnesota that we've been frustrated with. They still were able to come out on top in Game 4 and extend the series.
Yeah, they're typical. They had 2 quarters where they closed it. They were on a hot stretch, 2 bad closes to a quarter, and a 7 lead comes down to like a 3 or 4 point lead. It happened twice. I was like, oh god, here we go again. But they pulled it out. There's a lot of ways to go. We could talk about. I want to talk about the adjustments first. It's kind of just what I like to talk about most. So we saw out the gate, and Allie LaForce, even before the game started, had mentioned that Chris Finch told her that they were going to flip the matchup, put Jaden on Kyrie, Luka was going to be guarded by Ant, which prompted Draymond, of course, to kind of complain about, oh, why is Finch doing that? And I would say, buddy, if you're a coaching staff and you didn't prepare your players for this possibility, like, what are we doing here? But I digress. So on top of that, they did a little Thunderian leaving the corners open. We saw them leave the corners open way high. I think it was 18% frequency, which is way, way higher. It was 5%, 6% in Game 1 and 2. I think 11% in Game 3. So they took a little bit of like leave the corners open, and they were there. PJ had, I think, 5 corner threes. Derrick Jones Jr. had 3. The corners were open, but that made life tougher on Luka, Kyrie. And then obviously the lobs were still up, but their rim frequency was down. So a lot of the stuff that they implemented, I thought was pretty successful. What did you think about the Wolves' defensive scheme in Game 4?
Well, some of it you have to also color with the context of personnel and available on Dallas' side of the equation as well, right? So the absence of Derek Lively makes it so that you can shift the defense in a way that maybe surrenders the rim a little bit more when certain lineups are out there without Derek Lively or without Daniel Gafford. There's not that same level of rim pressure. So it's a different situation without Derek Lively in terms of how to cover all this. In terms of the basic approach, though, the overlying philosophy was, hey, Jaden McDaniels isn't really as effective against Luka Doncic as we think he would be against Kyrie Irving. And so we're kind of getting hit on both ends here. Let's at least try to cut off the water on one end and then deal with the one major problem that we still have with Luka Doncic. You saw them shift Anthony Edwards onto covering Luka Doncic, which you wondered how that would take a hold of him in terms of a toll from his energy in the fourth quarter. We've seen that be an issue at times during the course of the series, and Luka Doncic is a more physical cover than Kyrie Irving, maybe not as more kind of agility and quick twitch and be able and reactive, but more physically demanding, because Luka is going to lean into you, use his body, kind of push off and different things like that to get separation. And Ant seemed to hold up well. Kyrie shot 6 for 18 in this game, so was not in his comfort zone. Whether that's entirely due to Jaden McDaniels or it's just an off game for Kyrie Irving, who knows? It's a small sample. But I think all in all, that worked. That worked the way that Minnesota wanted it to work. Cut off the water from Kyrie Irving. Make sure some of the other secondary guys are the ones that maybe are forced to beat you. Do your best against Luka. Give him different looks and different coverages and do your best. I thought Luka just didn't shoot the ball well. I didn't think the defense on Luka was meaningfully better than it had been at any other point in the series. I just thought he didn't shoot the ball well. He shot the ball well, especially in key moments throughout the series. There was an in and out 3-pointer in the fourth quarter that I think would have really turned the tide. Dallas was kind of making a run back into it. And I think it would have given them the lead or tied the game. And I mean, it looked down and in and out for Luka. And that's just been going in the series previously. And as it often comes down to, it's a make or miss league. Minnesota ended up getting enough misses in this one. And I thought the defensive adjustments were, a big contribution of that. I also thought we saw more Kyle Anderson. We see more Kyle Anderson having to guard Luka Doncic, which I think is surprisingly turned into their best matchup on Luka Doncic. And so I think Finch is starting to figure some things out that fit a little bit better. It might ultimately be too late because they've given away too many of these games that they've had leads down late. I mean, No one's ever come back down from 3-0. If this was 2-2, we'd be feeling very, very differently about the series right now. But ultimately, I think they made some adjustments that are tilting things in their direction a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. I would push back just a bit. I thought the Luka defense was pretty good. And not because of Ant, because of the scheme. I thought Gobert with a bit of a drop and then the gap help I thought was really good. And I think my favorite stat to point that out, he had 21 drives. He only shot 6 times off those drives. So his drives were down. His drives were up, but his shot volume was down. And also his passing out of drives was big. 14 passes off drives, way up, eight and change before. So they were kind of getting the ball out of his hands from when he started to get downhill, and I thought that was from the defensive scheme they put in there. So I thought that was pretty good. But to your point, he shot like crap. Like his jump shooting was a disaster. 0.73 on dribble jumpers. I'm sorry. Yeah. So that was really bad. So he'll play better. Like I'm not really concerned about it. But I thought the scheme was pretty good, and I guess the counter is like make your jumpers, and he could do that. So if Luka makes jumpers with that coverage, they're going to be dead. And
Right.
if he had been, but I thought that making him, taking away a little bit of that rim pressure was pretty good. And then the other thing too that the drop does is that all those lobs they were throwing, which they still got a lot of them. We'll talk about Gafford in a little bit, but I don't know. I thought that was a pretty good scheme. And again, I may go on a Gobert rant like you did last series, so I can't take it. But yeah, so I thought that was pretty good defensively. And again, PJ Washington in the corner I talked about. I think we mostly covered it. Derrick Jones Jr. was great. Had the assists, I think 4 of them on 5 assists. And then Gafford, like we mentioned, all of his baskets were assisted, 6 of 6, all of them at the basket. So yeah, I think that they're going to run out the same defense. Do you have any sort of scheme stuff that you think
Well,
Minnesota
my
could do?
my
Or
question to you would be, how much does this change if Derek Lively is available in Game
yeah.
5 in terms of, you know, trying to limit Luka's rim pressure is a little bit easier when you don't have to deal with Derek Lively's rim pressure, because you can only take away so many things, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
when it's Maxi Kleber out there, when it's Dwight Powell out there, you're able to load up a little bit more on Luka
Mm-hmm.
Doncic compared to when it's Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford out there that are creating their own rim pressure. So, how
Yeah.
much do you think the scheme will translate to if Derek Lively is playing those minutes instead of Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell, or the assortment of role players that were picking up minutes?
Not too much. I don't have the stats, but they didn't blitz quite. I know Van Gundy talked about this a little bit. They didn't blitz all that much. So I don't know. I thought that their scheme was pretty good. So, but the way they were playing most of the time, I think is going to have they're going to have to play even more, right? Like they're not going to be able to mix in the blitzes as much in the live moments. But I think they were pretty comfortable with the gap help. And again, like I think it's if I'm the Wolves, I'd rather just let PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. on lower volume beat me. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think they'll have a pretty similar game plan regardless of Lively, which we could, I guess, get into now. Just super quick before we forget. Um, really, not too much to add as far as the Q tag, but Mark Spears had probably the most relevant note. He's lively told Mark Spears it was still it's a day-to-day thing. I'm not trying to rush it. We'll see. Kid said that Lively was still sore on Tuesday. So not looking great. Probably coin flip. We'll have more information. This is we're recording this kind of game day first thing of here, so we'll get more information later on the content. But yeah, my bottom line, I wouldn't so I thought they were gonna blitz like all day and they didn't. So I don't know. I think this will be okay.
Yep. I think the important thing, as you alluded to, though, is mixing up some of the coverages, because you said think it's fine to allow PJ Washington or Derrick Jones Jr. to try to beat you on low volume. And I think that's something that Oklahoma City didn't do, right? They played basically the same coverages and were like, hey, we're going to try to let you guys beat us on high volume.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows those guys to get into rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get into rhythm, they're going to be able to make shots a little bit better. I think mixing up the coverages, keeping Dallas off balance, especially with Luka, he's just so good at diagnosing and manipulating playoff defenses that you have to mix things up. So, but I think in general, just having Kyrie a little bit more locked down is a huge win for Minnesota. And whatever outcome that is, it puts more offensive responsibility on Luka. It puts more offensive responsibility on the secondary role players. When Kyrie's going, Dallas is very tough. If you look at like all of Kyrie's best games in the playoffs, those have largely been, pretty comfortable wins for Dallas for the most part. So I think that's the big win of this whole thing is just the effectiveness that Jaden McDaniels was having on Kyrie Irving, which we've talked about Jaden McDaniels as a defender and one of your elite perimeter defenders all season long. This is the type of matchup that's better for him. The bigger, stronger wings, not that they're bad for him. It's just not his comfort zone. His comfort is when he can use his size and his length to his advantage. When he doesn't have that as an advantage, he's still defending Luka very, very well, but it's more of a reactive defensive approach in terms of a proactive, aggressive defensive approach from Jaden McDaniels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, the ball denial was really good, and he couldn't really get to his spots either. I think the link really interfered, so I would expect him to mostly run it back, to even like a bigger degree, like I was saying, there. So, any other Dallas on ball stuff that you wanted to note? Like talk about Gafford a little bit if we wanted to. I mean, that's just what he does, and it's been really effective for them. Mentioned on the last pod that they have like more than the whole league in alley-oops in the playoffs. But yeah, I don't. Maxi Cleveland we could talk about too. But yeah, go ahead.
Luka as a lob thrower is just, I mean, just really ridiculous. The one he threw to Derrick Jones, where Derrick Jones was basically at the 3-point line when he threw the lob, was just like the touch. I don't know. It's just it's skill in such a different level than we're accustomed to. When you see like passes thrown with different touch, different angles, different spins, like it's a different skill than we think of in terms of skills, and it's something that I really appreciate from Jokic and from Luka. Luka was fantastic with all the lobs in this game. Gafford, the rim protection continues to be exceptional. Just, I mean, had back-to-back blocks on Cat at the rim late in the game that looked like it was going to be a potential tide turner. But he's been awesome. The Kleber minutes went fine. They were +2 in those 13 minutes, but Kleber looked a little bit hesitant to shoot the ball, looked a little bit hesitant to kind of defend physically. He looked like he was like in the right spaces like Maxi Kleber does, but not the aggressor. He looked like he was playing a little bit tentatively. And I think based on some of the comments that Jason Kidd had about like, we're going to run him out here for a few minutes and we'll see how it goes. I think he's clearly not fully healthy and he's trying to play through this, and kudos to him for trying to do so, but not the same level of game changer that we've been accustomed to, or a rhythm changer that we've been accustomed to seeing from Maxi Kleber. I didn't get that same feeling when he was out there in game 4 that I have in series past.
Yeah, if Lively plays, he might get really cut down. Because they did run that small ball stuff a pretty good bit, but like they had to. Like you're not going to play Daniel Gafford 40 minutes, and Daniel Gafford getting 31 minutes was pretty good overall. So I thought he had a pretty positive impact there. Jaden Hardy was awesome. Did want to shout him out really quick. It looked like he was going to turn the tide of the game. My buddy, actually, my Mavs fan buddy, texted me. He's like, "Hey, watch out for a Hardy big game." Got to give my friend Todd some props. But PJ shot volume up a little bit. The defense has been pretty good. He kind of denied the ball on Cat early pretty well. We'll get to Cat in a second. But I think Kyrie missing shots, just to dig in a little bit more of the minutia, or I think Silva calls it minutiae, which I disagree with. On ball stuff was not there. The catch and shoot stuff was missed. He missed all 3 of his catch and shoot stuff. And he did get some transition. So the poor half-court play cost him. It's Kyrie. I was watching, shame on me for watching like national stuff, but they were saying like Jaden McDaniels saying they were going to run the table is going to like light a fire under Kyrie. I don't know about all that, but we said it for years, pretty much since you and I started working together, that like you sometimes just throw the stats out on Kyrie. He could just go completely nuclear.
But, he's the most per pound per inch. He's the most skilled offensive player in the league, and maybe one of the most skilled offensive players we've ever seen at his size. So yes, matchups can make things more difficult on him at times, but there are games that we saw the left-handed hook shot over Jokic again that was perfectly defended. Like there's another left-handed shot. He's just incredibly skilled. So he could still get the best of a very tough matchup, but I think this is a tougher matchup than Anthony Edwards. I don't think Anthony Edwards is giving him the same. And a lot of that the national commentary is built off the fact that he was doing a great job against Anthony Edwards after Anthony Edwards said after the Denver series that he had him and so on and so forth. I think it was just a good matchup for Kyrie. I think Kyrie's quickness is a problem for Anthony Edwards in a way that Anthony Edwards isn't used to. I mean, there aren't many guys in the league that are as quick as Kyrie to get reps against. Right. And when you're the similar size, similar length, you have to be as quick. Jaden doesn't have to be as quick because he's so much longer. And so that's the difference between these two. That doesn't mean Kyrie can't have a big game against Jaden McDaniels. It just means that Minnesota's in a better position to try to cut that water off.
Yep, I would agree there. And then, yep, mostly covers it. Max Akliba, which you could transition here. That was a nice charge draw. Like his biggest play was drawing that foul on Cat, which might have swung the game because I guess we could swing to the Wolves offense a little bit here. Because Cat was on fire in the third, but it was the full Karl-Anthony Towns experience. 3 offensive fouls, 2 stupid all 6 of them were bad. Like, of course, you're gonna lean to Luka. You're gonna foul him. You push your guy in the back. They're gonna, go over the back. They're gonna call that every time. The 3 off. I forget what the other one was. Oh, it was a PJ Washington defense. I think so. But anyways, like 5 of them were bad. You can't do that to your team, man. Especially when he had it going. I did want to say his drives were up. He was we talked about this. Like, come on, man, play like a guard, drive the ball. He did everything we wanted to, except foul. Underdog with the great, Cat, stop effing fouling. Stop, dude. And then Ant said after the game, he's gonna get on Cat on the bus to tell him to stop doing that. But Cat, man, just maddening to watch that guy. But go ahead on Cat.
He is he's really a special offensive talent with his versatility at his size and his shooting touch. I would like to see more of those 4-5 pick and rolls with Rudy Gobert, where he was initiating some of those. They've had success on those pretty much throughout the series. But there was one, and it resulted in a foul call because I think Rudy got held while kind of rolling to the basket. But Karl just right after the whistle hit a floater, like a one-handed floater from beyond the free throw line, and it looked so effortless and smooth. And I was like, that looks like Mike Conley's floater. I would like to see more of that floater because that looked really comfortable and really easy. And like in that, but a floater comes with playing under control. And Karl-Anthony Towns isn't often playing under control, which is kind of the challenge. But you saw the wide roller coaster of emotions of rooting for or against Karl-Anthony Towns in this game because he was fantastic offensively. He was aggressive early on. That opened up the three-point shot. He finally made the open shots. We talked on the last podcast about he had been so bad. The open shooting was the difference largely in this series. On him not making shots is the reason they're down 3-0. He makes shots. They end up kind of coming from behind in the third quarter, playing really effectively, getting the lead and holding onto it in large part because of his offense. He's just so skilled offensively. If he can just play in control, man, his ceiling would have been so big if he could play under control. It's too late in his career for me to be like, oh, he's just going to change into playing like under control all the time. But he has so much touch offensively from a shooting perspective that he could do a lot more if he could control himself off the dribble. But he can't. He plays wild off the dribble, and that's why he gets so many offensive fouls. And the idea that he would lean into and try to draw a shooting foul when you have 4 fouls in the middle of the third quarter, like, and you're trying to avoid fouls and you're initiating contact is so brain dead to me. It's so dumb in terms of like an approach. And the elbow gets, I think it was Luka, or I'm not sure who the defender was, but the elbow gets the defender. They call the foul. They look at it for a flagrant, and it's just like, Cat, man, why are you trying to initiate the contact? You're the one with 4. The downside is so much bigger than the upside here. The downside is they call it on you and you're out of the game and your team's in trouble. The upside is, okay, you get 2 free throws when you could get 2 free throws without having to initiate the contact. So it's just so frustrating and maddening watching him, but he's such a skilled offensive player. Like I said, I would love to see a little bit more of that 4-5 pick and roll. I think it's been really effective for them. And that floater that he's hit once or twice, and then I saw him hit after the whistle, I was like, that looks really comfortable for him. Would really like to see that a little bit more, but getting the 3-point shot down for him is huge. We've said all series, and Naz Reid has shot the ball so freaking well this series that it's made us look real dumb, but the minutes with Naz Reid are not great. They need to get away from Naz Reid. Naz Reid played 20 minutes in this game. He was a -10, finally wasn't making shots in the same way, 0 for 1 from 3, only got that 1 shot off. But that was the concern, is Cat comes out, Naz has to come in, and can they hold the fort down? And I still continue to think, even though Naz Reid has shot the ball exceptionally well this series and provided a big offensive spark, I still continue to think this is not a Naz Reid series for Minnesota, and they need Cat to play well. They need more Kyle Anderson, and that's kind of their solution here. We finally saw Nickeil Alexander-Walker hit some shots, 2 for 5 from 3. Yeah. He was effective in his limited minutes, only 13 minutes there because Conley and Ant Edwards were very good. But we saw them get into some of those one big lineups late because they were forced to because of the foul trouble with Gobert and Cat. I thought those lineups were good. I thought they were pretty effective. I wouldn't mind seeing more of them. But the way to see more of those is less Naz Reid. And I keep harping on this. I keep martingaling it in Showdown. It hasn't really worked just yet, but I really think that's the solution for a lot of the stuff. And Cat playing well makes it all so much easier for them.
Yeah, there would have been even less of it. There was only 3 minutes of the Naz Reid Cat front court. We were talking about it going into it. That lineup was a problem. On the series now, we're at 43 minutes, minus 23.3 net rating in the Naz Reid and Cat minutes. They've got to go away, and they may have gone away entirely. I think they know that they just can't play that stuff. And should note that one big lineup, they used it for 7. So like one, it was mostly actually a lot of Naz. Because it's better, I'd rather have Naz not in space. Like he's just around the basket and he's fine there. So I thought that was pretty good. And then Kyle Anderson was great. Let me go on Gobert. So like I can't take it. People just saying like they take back their defensive player of the year because like Luka Doncic hit a big shot because Jokic. Who are you gonna give it to first of all? Joker destroyed Wemby. Joker destroyed like any other player there. Luka's destroyed like literally any player, almost anybody. Maybe it wouldn't have been the same way, but like Luka would have got to his spot and probably made it. I hate it. I hate it. I can't take it. I just think it's there to just amuse people. That's the only thing I can take. But I thought Gobert made a big impact defensively. Go ahead.
On Rudy. He's the plus-minus leader for Minnesota in the playoffs.
Yeah, what are we doing
here? He's been their most impactful player on a team that is in the conference finals, had an upset over the champs. He's been everything that they've wanted him to be, largely. He might not be everything you want him to be, but that's on you if you want him to be able to stop these guys that nobody can stop. And yes, maybe when Victor Wembanyama gets into his prime, he will be a guy that will be able to shut off everything. Victor Wembanyama is an alien.
Yeah.
That guy does not exist anywhere else in the world. So if that's the comp that we're going to hold up to, eventually there's going to be somebody who's going to be able to shut off the water at the rim and on the perimeter because of their length, because it's this one freaking alien that we haven't seen ever play in the league. I asked a question on Twitter when somebody was getting on Gobert. I said, who is the big that has not gotten exposed in the playoffs? Anthony Davis. Absolutely exposed by Nikola Jokic. Bam Adebayo got wrecked by Nikola Jokic. They slowed the games down, so the counting stats looked a little bit better. But they were just playing incredibly slow possession games. Denver's offense was still destroying Bam Adebayo in those games. Draymond, Jokic with Austin Rivers and Will Barton and Facundo Campazzo put up like 30 and 12 and 7 on Draymond in a series. Like these guys, the absolute best offensive players in the league, you're not going to stop them. So the expectation that, a guy hits a tough contest over you, it is what it is. Same thing when Anthony Davis is like, Jamal Murray hit a shot. What do you want me to do? He's a great player. Like it's insane. And so it's so frustrating to me that the general fan consensus opinion is that offense is the thing that matters so much, right? And then they don't give credit to the great offensive players when they beat the best defensive players. But that's the way it works. The rules are skewed in that way, and that's the way it works. So Rudy's been the most impactful positive player for Minnesota this series, the whole playoffs. He's been great, and it's really crazy that the landscape and the narrative is shaped because people don't like Rudy. And we're giving platforms to people who really don't like Rudy to spew all this hate. And it's just insane to me. I can't believe I got to assume somebody at TNT has given Draymond a note on this and he just doesn't care. And maybe TNT thinks it's like good interaction and good engagement because any attention is good attention. But I've just I've tuned out on this stuff. And the same thing on social media. It's just, it's a bunch of people who, to me, they're telling on themselves that they don't really understand basketball. Yeah. And it's crazy because it's some of the smartest players in the league that are saying this so people can latch onto it. But that is just bias. That is just beef and bias from Draymond Green. He is just upset that he has not gotten the Defensive Player of the Year awards, which in Draymond is a more versatile defender than Rudy Gobert. He absolutely is, and he's just as good of a defender as Rudy Gobert, and so he deserves to be talked about in that. But that should not take away from Rudy. But we're spending too much time taking away from Rudy.
For sure. And then just on offense, I thought he had impact. They ran a lot of a lot of Gobert pick and roll with Ant-Man, which was impactful. We saw the post up too. We saw post ups from Rudy again when they switched Luka on him. So I thought that was pretty good. One of his better offensive impact games. And like he lost minutes of foul trouble. He would have played in the 40s if he didn't pick up fouls. So like the whole play Gobert off the court stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like
That's hilarious.
What are we doing here? Like
he's averaged more minutes per game in the playoffs than he has in the regular season in almost every year that he's played. The idea that he's been played off the court is just, I mean, one series he got played off the court a little bit. That was it.
Yeah. How big of a I was trying to think about this. How big of a lead would Dallas need to like, okay, we got to go 3-point heavy, like, because like if you take Gobert off the court, you're just gonna let them score every time. So like 20, like I just can't. Anyways, let's go to Ant. I mentioned the pick and roll game. That was really strong, and I did want to highlight a pretty cool stat. His drives are way up. The last 2 games, he's driven more than any other playoff game he's ever had. 28 in Game 3, 23 in Game 4. Really, really aggressive, getting downhill. The passing's been great. Mentioned the pick and roll game's been really strong for him. So the shot still wasn't like perfect, and he wasn't really shooting well off drives. He missed a lot of kind of contested layups that he usually makes. Obviously, we've seen some highlights along the way, but I like how he's playing. I think he's playing the right way. Obviously, he's been really, really aggressive with the defense. The fouls, he had a couple bad fouls, couple turnovers, but very much a product of his like pick and roll handling game. I thought he played pretty well on the whole. But anything you saw from Ant that maybe could change some things overall?
Looked a little bit more decisive coming on the pick and roll, whether he was going right to the rim or whether he was going right into his jumper in a kind of the pull up into attacking that space. Just looked a little bit more decisive. I think he's gotten one of the challenges for Ant is he's gotten so good with his footwork this year, and his athleticism is obviously off the charts, that he's been able to be a little bit more patient with his footwork and then do all these creative step throughs and different things. There's so many people in the paint against Dallas that there's no room to get creative with your footwork. So you just have to be aggressive in attack. And I think that adjustment that he's made, I think he's catching up to the speed a little bit, but the turnovers are still an issue. You can't turn the ball over 6 times. That's really the thing, that if Minnesota is going to pull off this incredible comeback, they need to cut down the turnovers. I mean, they won this game in part because they shot 46% from 3. They nailed open threes at a rate that they had not in previous games. If you're going to say to me, okay, you got to win 3 more games in a row, I can't rely on 46% from 3 shooting. So I need to rely on things that I can control. We need to rebound the ball better. They did a good job. They won the rebounding battle in this game, and they need to cut down turnovers. 14 is still a little too high. They need to get that down to like 10, essentially, to really have a chance that's not dependent on 3-point shooting, which is the crux of this whole problem when you're coming down from 3-0.
Yep, for sure. And then I thought Conley was good. The transition game was pretty strong. The defense, he got in some passing lanes, made some big plays there. Don't have much to say, but playing pretty well, and that's effectively cut down Nickeil Alexander-Walker just because Kyle Anderson's too good. And it's got some love. I mean, if you haven't seen it yet, Kyle Anderson is running a play. Have you seen this thing that they're talking about, Dink? I wonder if we can get maybe the video up on YouTube. I could pass it along. But so like Anthony Edwards is on the right side of the court, and he's kind of looking to get a shot, gets in the lane, and then Kyle Anderson sets an off-screen play for Cat and is like, "Yo, pass it behind me," and then kicks it over to Cat and hits a 3. It's just absolutely awesome. Kyle Anderson's been so good. But any thoughts on Kyle Anderson's impact on this series?
His defense, his offense. So this is where I thought he could replace Mike Conley a little bit more, was what you just described, kind of the offensive organizing. Like, he's not the one with the ball doing the offensive organizing, but getting people in the right spots. And you see a lot of the high level players, you see LeBron doing this all the time, like pointing guys like over there, Jokic doing it like, no, over there. We're going to open this up by doing this. Kyle Anderson has that understanding. I don't think Anthony Edwards yet has that level of understanding of like manipulating defenses. He's just 22. He's going to get it over time with more reps and different things like that. But I don't think he's quite there yet. So Conley does that for them. I thought in this series they could have Kyle Anderson do that more for them and play Nickeil Alexander-Walker instead of Conley and play bigger and have more length to defend and different things. They just haven't gotten to those lineups. They haven't been interested in them. Finch isn't interested in the one big lineups as much as I am for Minnesota in this series. But he's been exceptional, both from a mental game and a physical game. His body control and his ability to handle and absorb the contact from Luka is a big difference maker in terms of the comfort of Luka getting space. Because so many times when Luka is working into his step back, he's leaning in with that shoulder, he's getting you on that shoulder lean, and then he's pushing off and getting to a shot. And Kyle Anderson is absorbing more of that than other guys. And so Luka's just a little bit less in rhythm with Kyle out there. So yeah, he's been exceptional. They need more Kyle Anderson. I think that's been clear from very early in the series. I think we finally got a little bit more of it last game, in part because of some of the foul trouble of the bigs, but I'd like to see it be a bigger focus. And again, for me, it's less Naz Reid. It's more Kyle Anderson in the series.
Yeah, and then the other play, they were back-to-back, the play that I just talked about, and then they run like a split action, gives the ball to Ant, screens the other way, Cat off screen, and 3. Those were like the swinging the game play. So yeah, we'll see a lot of slow-mo today. We expect Naz Reid to cut down.
Which, by the way, the play that you're talking about, those cross-court passes, Dallas's defense is just loading up strong side throughout the playoffs, and they are just daring teams to make that over-the-top pass, because most teams that they've played don't have players that are accustomed to making that type of pass. And there's not many that do, right? Like Jokic makes it, LeBron makes it, Luka makes it. I actually think Tatum is pretty good at making this, which is why I think if Dallas and Boston get into the finals, I think that'll be interesting to see if Dallas's defense is tested a little bit more by Boston's ability to actually move the ball across the court in both sides of the court, because that's really what Dallas is kind of testing you. Will you use and get the ball to both sides of the court in an offensive set? And most teams get bogged down on one side, and Dallas is kind of feasting off of that. And so that play that you're highlighting is one of those cross-court passes that really does open up the defense and gets that ball moving. That's where they're going to get those open corners or open above the break threes, is kind of when you're moving the ball back across the court.
For sure. So yeah, mostly covered everyone. Anything else you wanted to note on before we kind of get to predictions, and then we can quickly hit Boston and Indiana?
No, I think we can go through. Do you think we're seeing a game 6?
I kind of do. I think that it's kind of odd. It's kind of odd that Minnesota's been so bad at home and so good on the road. But I don't know. I think they found some things. I think Kyrie is going to probably struggle again. They're going to need a good game out of Luka. You know, they got a good game out of Cat almost. You know, if he didn't have foul trouble, maybe that game turns into a blowout, because they were really cooking when Cat was on. So I still like where the Wolves are at here. Obviously, I'm not going to pick them for the series, but I think you know, you get game 5, and then maybe you got a shot. Obviously, you're going to need like a, what is it, 0-155, I think it is.
Yeah, I think we see a game 5. I don't think we see, or excuse me, I think we see a game 6. I don't think we see a game 7.
Yeah,
is where I'm at. I think Dallas in 6 is where we're at right now, which is just the home teams taking care of business from here on out. So not surprising, but I mean, it's just the margins are so thin for a Wolves team that has a habit of making mistakes that it's really hard to envision them coming back all the way. But they're a very talented team, and they could easily be up 3-1 in the series, easily. And so it's been frustrating as a Minnesota backer in this series, but Dallas doesn't make the same. Dallas is much tidier in late game situations, in part because of Luka and Kyrie.
Yeah, for sure. And then shout out Sean Sweeney, their defensive coordinator. He's been really, really good for them. Okay, so let's just put a quick little bow on Boston, Indiana. I want to lead with, I thought Jason Tatum should have won Finals MVP, and I'm pretty convinced that a couple of the voters gave it to Jalen because he didn't get it all NBA bid. I won't be convinced otherwise. I'm because I thought Jason Tatum clearly was the better player to me. From how many big rebounds did he have? How many big passes did he have? He's guarding the rim. Obviously, Jalen had the big shot in the corner in the 40-point game, but I thought Jason Tatum was so consistent throughout the series that he should have clearly won it to me for his impact on both sides. So I don't know if you have any thoughts there before we kind of dig in.
I think it's also sometimes it's when two players are pretty equal and the secondary player is less likely to be equal to the top player in
Yeah.
the next series or another series, it's like,
Yep.
well, we kind of want to spread the joy around a little bit. So I could see that, but I thought Jalen was great this series too.
He was. He was really
Want
good.
I don't want to suggest this was only given out of pity. Jalen played well enough to win
No,
that
no, no.
award
I'm not saying it's
as
like,
well
oh
during the
my
series.
god,
Yeah,
blasphemy, but I don't know.
yeah,
I think that was if you was it was a tie, like that broke the tie.
I think so. I think that's
Yeah.
reasonable.
Yeah. Okay, and then any other thoughts? I should mention Kristaps. He's probably back game one. He's going to have 8-9 days off, so should be good. Probably capped. We'd probably run his open at 29, I'd say, for minutes, maybe even 28. We'll find out. We got some time. But any thoughts just on? There's nothing to say. Like, sure, they had a really easy path. I don't care. I guess the question is, does that easy path, was it so easy that it may hurt them?
I don't know. I mean, the good news is, so I think some of the concern was like, will they get enough like tough moment playoff reps? They got the embarrassing loss at home against Miami. I think that's a good rep to recover from. They got a lot of late game reps against Indiana playing from behind. They were very good in the clutch this series throughout. So I think those were good late game situation reps to be able to get. I do think that the level of defense that they're going to see in the next round is going to be an adjustment in terms of what they're going to be able to see. But they're so talented offensively, and when they get Kristaps back, they just have so many ways to spread the floor and open things up that even if you're playing a more intense, tougher physical defense, their ability to spread those defenses out makes it less impactful because they create so much space for themselves. I think their defensive intensity needs to ratchet up a lot. Now we saw them turn that on in the second half of both games 3 and game 4. That's the thing that I'm kind of most concerned about from their perspective is like, you haven't faced offensive talent at the same level that you're going to face in this next series, most likely with Luka and Kyrie. And so, I mean, if Andrew Nembhard is out there looking like Luka and Kyrie, what are Luka and Kyrie going to look like is kind of your first concern. Shout out to Nembhard. He was incredible. But that's my bigger concern for them is like defensively, are they going to be able to kind of ramp it up right from the start? Because I think there's going to be a different level that they're competing against on that end of the floor.
Yeah, I think they're pretty well equipped for the Mavs with Drew on Luka, Derek White on Kyrie, and then length to kind of stop the corner shooting. The switchability has been really, really valuable for them. But the Mavs have some rim presence now, man. Like that's kind of been the big Mavs adjustment. Is like I mentioned alley oops, but overall their rim, like you don't get big rim volume on just alley oops. That would that would make Lob City look like Lob like Square. It wouldn't even be it'd be just like a little part of the town. But yeah. So I don't know. I'm probably picking Boston either way. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, we'll have a finals preview. I'll save my leans for that. But I will say that I'm struggling with that potential matchup in a similar way that I was struggling with Dallas and Oklahoma City. In that the combination of the team that I trust versus the matchup is pulling in different directions, and that's difficult for me to kind of sort through. But yeah,
I will say this: I think if you want to bet Boston, like you wait it out. Like I think that the market is going to push to Dallas. Like I think that the line's going to be so heavy Boston, people are going to push it the other way. Do you think it's going to kind of open big for Boston and kind of move closer?
Well, we've already got some opens. I mean, it's been Dallas plus 180 has been kind of the number that I've seen on Caesars floating around, and I could see that if Minnesota is able to push this series deep, then maybe that number gets worse. But I also think I think Boston could come out a little bit flat game 1. So we'll see. The Dallas has a history of that too. So I don't know that I'm still working through it as I save some of the content for the preview.
Yep. Cool. So we'll be back for that. We'll be doing a pod either coming out first thing Monday or Sunday. We'll let you guys know, but that'll be our pod schedule, and then we'll figure it out based on if we get Game 7, anything else for the peeps before we hopefully get. I don't know. Let's get to Game 7. Let's root for it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So the content. the content schedule, just so people are prepared. As I alluded to in last week's last episode before this, Mike and I have an ETR trip next week. We will be recording a finals preview. When that finals preview comes out is dependent on how far we get in this series. So we will have a podcast, as Mike alluded to. We'll record Sunday. We're both traveling Monday. We'll record Sunday and either release Sunday, afternoon, evening, or first thing Monday morning. It will either be a Game 7 preview of Monday night or a finals preview. If it is a finals preview, that will likely be our only podcast of the week. We will come back the following Monday and recap games 1 and 2 of the NBA Finals and see where we're at from there. If it is a Game 7 preview, we will get a finals preview in before the end of the week. So that'll be the scheduling. You may or may not get 2 pods from us next week, depending on the length of this Minnesota-Dallas series, but wanted to keep the listeners informed of kind of our intent to provide content down the stretch.
Yep, should be pretty exciting. Rooting for more basketball. We would have been really, it would have been hard to make content for something else in there. All right, so that's gonna do it for today. Appreciate you guys. Catch you guys next time.